Hi everybody, welcome to this episode of Inspired Classroom. Today we're going to be looking at Golden Eagle data, and my name is Joshua. I work for MPG Ranch as the Education and Community Outreach Manager, and here with me today is Eric.
Hello, yes, my name is Eric, and I work with Joshua and with MPG Ranch on various projects involving different data sets, large and small, and so it's great fun to look at this Eagle data also.
Yeah, so today we're going to work together to tease out some of the particulars of some flight paths and to help you in the classroom learn how to do this yourself so that you can look at this data, take it apart, and start to come to some conclusions from what you're looking at.
Great.
All right, off we go. All right, so we're going to take some of these flights that you see behind me, and we're going to look at two of them. So Eric is bringing up the menu bar over here. We're going to deselect these flights to remove that data, and then we're going to bring up two of them that we're going to highlight. But we're going to start with this green one that you see above me. And so our first example is going to be a migratory individual. You can see down on the southern end, here we go, of its range. We outfitted this individual with a transmitter on the MPG Ranch in the Bitterroot Valley just south of Missoula, Montana. And you can actually see that first data point right here where it picks up the transmitter, and that individual flies around the Bitterroot Valley just a little bit and then begins to head north. But if we pull out just a little bit here, you can see behind me, this is where it really chose to make its winter range. And so with these flight paths heading off, it's obvious that this is the migratory route of this individual. We'll head north here along the Rocky Mountain front. And oh wait, here, stop just a second. What's going on with this spot right here? And so there's a lot of flight fidelity to this migratory path, but in this instance, this eagle decided to divert from its course and explore a river system. So, you can begin to ask questions like, why? What's here that this eagle was interested in? Was it hunting? Was it just exploring? Is this a stopover point? It doesn't seem to return to this area. And things that would most likely take an eagle off of the migratory path is weather. So they'll move faster or slower depending on weather. Sometimes they get bumped off course because of weather, and so they'll divert to avoid storms. So that's always a possibility. So we're going to swing around here and continue north, following this migratory flight path to the summer range for this individual. And here you can see, based on just the amount of flight data up here, that it spent quite a bit of time on its summer range. And so it's good for you to explore this. So look at all these different points, look at all these different flight paths. What in this environment is good for this individual? What's a risk for this individual? Does this show hunting? Does this show nesting? These are questions that you can tease out from the data that you're seeing. Does this individual spend much time fishing? Or is this individual spending more time in the mountains or in the open areas hunting in those spaces? So we're going to zoom in here just a little bit. Eric, you can bring us in, and then we can dial the opacity down just a little bit in some of these denser areas. And this will give you an opportunity, excuse me, an opportunity to look at the specific points.
And would you like to change the opacity of the tracks here?
Yeah, let's dial it down just a little bit and see what that does. So we're going to do this again with the other path that we're going to look at, but it's a good way to just explore what's going on. So you can see in the sidebar here, going down to the line path, we're opening Get Info, going to Style Color, and you can change the opacity to dial it down, and then you can begin to see where the points where the data was actually recorded. So all those red dots indicate where the backpack that this individual is wearing recorded them. And then you can also see in these denser areas where this individual is flying to, where they're roosting, things like that. So with these migratory individuals, things to consider are their summer range is a very pristine place. There's very little human habitation there, very few human obstacles, so no power lines, no oil and gas development, things like that. And in the southern end of the range, often that can be a different story. So these are things to consider when we talk about risks presented to migratory individuals. So here we are flying south again and coming into the wintering range. And so even though Montana is pretty remote and we don't have a very large population of people, it's just a very different scene for these eagles on their wintering range. So again, we come in here and we can see that this individual, there's definitely a center hub to this activity and a lot of flights out to surrounding ridges.
A couple of things that I notice in this in the satellite images here. The round circles you can see are agriculture. You can see this meandering river here, and when I look at this in the upper left-hand corner here, that looks kind of like a curious thing too. And actually, because we live here, I know that this is a really big mine. Now, when you look at the tracks, there's a good thing happening here. The eagle isn't interested in that mine at all. But is there any runoff that the eagle is affected by? You know, I don't know. But these give us a starting point to ask that question.
Yeah, so using Google Earth as a tool to explore what's in the landscape is really important. Cool, thanks for pointing that out, Eric. Great, well, let's zoom out here. You can just take a look at this whole path, and then we will move on to the next one. All right, for our second individual, we're looking at a non-migratory bird. So this golden eagle spends summer and winter in this range. And so if we come in on the southern end of the range, you can see that it spends a lot of time here. We're looking at 5 years worth of flight data. I want to highlight that strange outlier. There's a data point that looks like it may be a slight malfunction and not a flight. So something to consider too when you're looking at the data, that it could just throw a point potentially. But the rest of these look really good. And so we'll follow this out of the Bitterroot Valley. We're going to head north towards the Rocky Mountain front. You can see this individual flies back and forth and visits all sorts of different areas along the way, but mostly it's spending its time either in the Bitterroot Valley or here on the Rocky Mountain front. And so why would it be doing that? What's drawing it to the Rocky Mountain front at this particular time of year? Looks like it's spending a lot of time in agricultural areas, which could also potentially be ground squirrel areas. So there could be a food resource here that this individual is very interested in that is also a little bit risky because people shoot ground squirrels quite a bit, which introduces lead to their food supply. And so that could be a definite hazard for this individual. As we pull out a little bit, Eric's going to bring up a layer here to show that this eagle spends time partially on the Blackfeet Reservation and partially off. So something to consider as well, because you have different management practices and policies on tribal land versus state land versus wildlife sanctuary or federal land. And so you have all these different agencies that may have different rules and regulations. So things to consider. On our end, certainly the eagle's not thinking about this, but it does affect them. So then as we head south again, we're going to take a look at where it spends its time in the Bitterroot Valley. And so we've got 5 years worth of data here. So this is really a heavy layer. And Eric's going to go in there and kind of tease that opacity down a little bit so that we can get a better sense of what's going on here. You can see how he's doing that, going to the line, getting info, style, color, and then playing with the opacity. So this is something that you can do as well. So all those red areas are the points from the transmitter, and we'll try to bring those down too. So that clears them out, and then we can kind of dial this back a little bit, and we're going to see the heaviest concentration of color is going to indicate really where this individual is spending most of their time. Because we've got 5 years worth of data, we've dialed those flights way back in terms of how opaque they are, and so where you see these heavy amounts of color are really the preferred areas for this individual. So what is drawing this individual to these places? What resources are here? What food? What hazards? These are all things that you can think about as you're looking at this data. And when he brings that back up, you can see what a difference it makes. Great, so we really wanted to highlight here 2 different individuals, one migratory, one non-migratory, who spend their time, part of their year anyway, in relatively the same spot in the Bitterroot Valley here near Missoula. So Eric's bringing both of those up now to just show the comparison. And if we get so we can see both of those. There we go. So the migratory individual in blue and the non-migratory individual in yellow there. There.
We'll do another quick little demo. What we had adjusted the thickness of the blue line, and actually we even changed the color to green. So it would be just a quick demo on that so that we can see them both, so that they become more legible, or so that you can see them more clearly.
There, so this looks like what we were flying you through earlier. So here are both of those very clearly illustrated. Now the migratory individual in green, the non-migratory individual in yellow. Great, well thank you everybody for joining us today, and I hope this has been informative for you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.